Okay, I just got out of the gym and I wanted to talk about, honestly, just like some chill things. Kindness is like one of the most powerful things that you can give other people that doesn't infringe on really anything. Saying something really nice to somebody that you don't know, or even you might possibly dislike at first glance, does so much for this planet. It does so much. Like, if you want like brownie points from God, if you want brownie points from like people that you wish you could get back at, but you know now that forgiveness is the key, say one nice thing about them and say one thing that you dislike about them that you are so much like. Because the key component that separates you from the mass populace of people, from the exoteric, which is like, I don't know, like 90% of the world, is oneness, is unity consciousness. And we're going to such a place now, like with evolution, that it'll be like a 50-50 split. Like, it's like the ultimate like leverage of our reality is like two sides of things, which is just, and if that does arise some feelings of concern in you, I completely understand. It's just balance. It's just the way it works, and everybody's choosing at all times to be exactly where they are. And that doesn't really stand for like people who are in super abusive or negligible situations, like people who are involved in war-torn areas. That really does nothing. That point of view I'm speaking of comes from a place of living in a peaceful state, like a peaceful area, like America. Like, it's very America to say stuff like that. But also you could understand it in such a way where like you actually, how do I say this? Like, doing anything that you possibly could to get back to that peaceful state. And that's what people who are in those scenarios are most likely doing. I read a story in this book I'm reading about how this guy just like last minute was able to get out of his country before a war broke out. And it kind of looks like that. But I also want to acknowledge and honor that there are people who are trapped in very despairing, dark situations. But what we do in place of those moments is just as important as getting them out of safety. And it's about living our lives with honor and grace for people who are in those disastrous, man-made tortures. Say something kind to somebody else, or even think a kind thought about yourself, especially, and of others. Because when you understand and when you're walking into unity consciousness, how you are approaching your life and how you are approaching your interactions with other people is not just a moral standpoint. It is the pinnacle of evolution. That is what separates us from animals. It's a higher level of consciousness. It's understanding that there doesn't have to be a rule book, even though there has to be rules and laws to keep a lot of the people that are closer to animals than high consciousness spiritual beings like we're supposed to be. It keeps them in line because that fear is a really good tool to use to control them, fear of punishment, because that's the world that they live in. You have to understand that. And that's not the way that it should be. We all know how we want the world to be, but that's just not how the world is, because we don't get to decide that. We don't get to decide how this reality is run. We decide how we get to run our lives based upon the circumstances that we're in. Much like people who are in those destructive city states. That's a lesson to learn there. There's a peace in that situation. And if I could do more, I will, you know, I will create something in my life to where I can continue to be a proponent and be the change. Because the only thing that will ever change your life is if you change yourself. Hardest lesson I've ever learned. One of the kindest things that anyone has ever said to me is that I'm a beautiful person. Inside and out. That's just been one of my key issues in this lifetime, has been like beauty and proximity to being gorgeous and beautiful. And so I I'm in such a point in my life where I will never allow validation to rule it. So whether someone is saying something positive or negative about me, it has no true influence on the objective reality that we're all living in, doesn't it? Because those are just perspectives and opinions. And as we know now, there is only one true objective reality that we are all striving forward towards, that we are very, very far from. And that's a great thing, because we get to live in the disillusion of that objective truth and be humans and to be here and to be learning. Because if we didn't have this experience, then we would never know what it meant to be far away from it and to forget to remember. Because how else would any of the things that exist here without the proximity? And I just answered my own question. And so I guess this is part of mastering space in the space-time scenario, is understanding when people are referencing like, oh, this isn't this, it's that. It's not that, it's this. Because that's one of the main key things that we use to differentiate in our reality. But me personally, you know, I want to be able to identify things without that. So like the next step, I think, of mastering space would be mastering the nothingness of the surrender. Those nothing states, like the primordial feminine void, you know. I went a little far there. Because this is really not what that video is about. This video is about kindness. That, well, you could say, like, so with kindness, with just not, with the law of, like, with just giving, being a giving person, with the law of giving, if you just give without asking for anything, that is just the thing. That is what all of the monks are doing. They are giving selflessly. They are being given to selflessly by putting themselves into the monasteries and secluding themselves from society. They are giving themselves fully to God in surrender, to learn and to achieve enlightenment. Thank God, me personally, thank God that that's not my path. I am so grateful for my path that I've been given, and being able to learn and experience very core spiritual teachings. Like, that's a kind thing to say. I'm so thankful for my teacher. I love my teacher. A kind thing that you can say to someone, like, especially someone who you think is like gross and smelly, it's just like, you know what, I like that. I like that you're so comfortable being on the street, because I've never been able to do that in my whole life. Even though I wish that I have been working towards being able to like travel a lot more on my own without barriers, because I have such a, you know, I have so many luxuries in my life, like a place to live and stuff, that you take for granted. But again, it's a proximity thing. So I can just be grateful for what I have without comparing to someone else. Because when you're grateful in proximity to someone, when you're grateful for your mattress because someone else doesn't have one, you're grateful that you have something that someone else doesn't, and that's just a comparison, that's just a projection. Because there are people that are very happy sleeping on not a mattress. So let's turn into something else. But that's just what I wanted to say. This is my little YouTube video of today. So, my name is City. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm on the path, just like so many of you, and that's probably why you're here right now, is because you really want to learn. And you just like are curious about what I'm going to say. Follow me on all my social media. And if you want to work with me, girl, please go to my website and take a peek at what my offerings are. I'm starting to do something I'm like, feel like I should do, but it was like a calling by like a chime to start doing initiations in the esoteric, which is just going from subjective stories of God to the objective versions of God that are unparalleled to anything in our existence. So you're welcome to join me if you're ready for the next level. If you feel like you're ready to understand why there is no good and evil, which is the hardest thing to accept. And I also have a free guide on my website to portals. And every single week on Monday, me and my great friend Trevor, we do intentional meditation. So we're starting a little group of collective people that are maybe new or just don't want to meditate alone, like once a week. Like, come. And I have a free guide on portals, which is what you're always going through in life when you're learning. It's the reason that smells remind you in memory. So, yeah. My name's City. I'm a spiritual teacher. Nice to meet you.